And that's also the emotional connection. They have an emotional experience when they role play like that draws meaning for them and a bit more understanding to the concept.
So a teacher would probably perhaps consider emotionalizing their curriculum and taking that extra effort,
Right.
because we do know that what aids memory is emotion.
Right.
I have to feel the curriculum. I
Right.
have to feel your
That's right.
teaching. I have to feel your passion, your enthusiasm, and your
Yes.
motivation. And she said that in her own words, very, very eloquent.
Well, and
Don?
she also talked about the emotion of the teacher being understanding.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's important. She was communicating, hey, recognize that I might be having some difficulty or some frustration. Remember what it was like to be in my shoes and to empathize. So she communicated about emotion on both sides of it, as far as I'm concerned.
And one thing that makes me think of the kind of a teacher this girl would like to have is somebody who's, out of the box and is really getting involved and talking about the role playing. But I think sometimes as educators we're afraid to do that, or we may not have the right class. We may have the class makeup this year. I have some behavior problems or I have some issues. I can't do that fun stuff, but when doing that, a lot of times you get so many teachable moments that just pop up. Andre's soup kitchen, I bet there's just a million questions that just come up that he could have never prepared for.
Right.
And that those children that, like Josh, back to the earlier, where he's unmotivated and he sees this and all the bells are going off and he's thinking, wow, hey, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? You got all these questions, and it a lot of times can bring in those children that are struggling, or just with not really being disconnected, to really come in and they might not be if they are in fact a behavior problem or a behavior issue. Sometimes it's being brave and stepping out and drawing that child in.
Sure. And when I talk about Josh, and I do several presentations about Josh's story, there are 5 invisible questions that I talk about during my presentation based on what you are saying. These are 5 questions that I have developed for Josh on his behalf that I probably would never been asked by Josh. I call it the 5 invisible questions. And I think I want to share this today so that everybody watching this program would also maybe internalize. The first question that Josh would have liked to ask me that I needed to answer in different ways, probably through role modeling, was the first one is the big one, which is, do you really, really care about me? The second question is, do you really understand me? The third question is, do you really know how I learn as an individual? The fourth question is, as a teacher, do you really have high expectations of me? And my last question, which I love, is, do you really love what you teach? And I felt as an instructor, at the time I was teaching Josh, I had to internalize those deep, deep questions and maybe reframe, rethink how I teach in the class. So I started to answer those questions on a daily basis for Josh. And I found a dramatic improvement in his attitude, and we started to move him in that direction. What are your thoughts about the 5 questions?
I think it goes right into what we do at Scales. We have a thing that every teacher does. It's called morning meeting. It's where we bring the students together as a group at the beginning of the day, and we go over joys and concerns. We talk about some happiness they've had in their lives. We talk about some things that may be bothering them in their lives. We play a game. We share, where students will bring in something that's important to them. Kids will get to ask them questions about it. It's a 10 to 15 minute time at the beginning of the day that we sit as a group and we just discuss things. That is my time as a teacher to get down with my kids and having me there asking questions to them, responding to their questions. I think lets them know some of those questions that you just asked. They know that I care. They know that I'm concerned. They know that I'm with it. I'm there with them and for them. We start our day off that way. serves so many purposes. Biggest of which is setting up that classroom community and that climate that we all achieve for, to where hopefully you don't have a kid who's wondering those things at the end of the day and at the end of the school year.
And a simple piece of morning meeting that's included every day is a greeting. There are children who, in the rush of the morning, are not always greeted. And that's knowing or desiring to know someone cares about me. And so in morning meeting, you take time to greet everyone in that circle so we can make sure that everyone's greeting. And the morning I work out front, Mr. Barch works in the cafeteria or out on the side. We greet children and families and welcome them. And a comment that I've heard recently from several visitors to Scales has been, your students greet me. They come up to me and they say hello and introduce themselves. And so they are taking on that greeting and understanding the importance of it and sharing that with others to let them know, I care that you are visiting my school today and I want you to know that. So that's a very simple thing. Being out in the hallway, greeting children in the early morning, in your class and in other classrooms, just saying hello is such a valuable thing to do in the morning.
Thank you.
And also with piggybacking off of that morning meeting, just say Mr. White, since he's the teacher here, we'll use him as an example, that he has a child that really doesn't connect with him, even through all of those things. He's going to connect with somebody in the room. Right. And there's going to be some, he's going to, the kids are all, the students are all going to work together and they're going to have that family atmosphere.
Right.
So maybe there's a personality issue with the teacher and the child, but the year isn't lost.
Right.
Because there's accountability with your peers.
Sure.
Relationships
And
are built and fostered.
Yeah, and that way that can really facilitate some good learning environment and some good learning situations. Because then everyone's working together
Right.
instead of me and the teacher.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your responses. I believe morning meetings have their purpose, and I think it brings a sense of community. It puts
It
back
does.
onus and direction onto learning. It's a powerful, powerful strategy.
It is.
And it's something we advocate in positive behavior support. It's something that children actually look forward to. It's not something we want to come and talk about curriculum, but we want to talk about you, your life. Who are you?
Right,
And
exactly.
that's beautiful. Something else I've done is I went to the library or I went to ERIC, one of the research databases, and I went to find this word educate. What does it really mean? And I found out that it is a Latin word that means to lead or to bring out or to draw out and to instill this desire for learning. I'm going to share with you a segment right now of one teacher that is doing a phenomenal job also in Alabama. And she's going to talk to you about this segment.
This group of children, one of the strengths is that they come very street smart. And I try to take this and build on it. And by doing that, I have them do sequins and all the stuff that will build a community. Once I build the community, the kids begin to trust me. And once they start trusting me as a teacher, they open up and start writing more.
What do you think?
She is getting to know her students and taking what they know and utilizing that as a strength within her classroom to bridge the gap and to create a relationship with the children and with herself. And you were just talking about a student recently that has a particular need to demonstrate learning in a unique way. And you're working to do that in your own classroom, taking what he brings in, a talent and a passion. And although it's not necessarily a mirror to what's going on in the classroom, Mr. White's going to use that to bridge that gap. So that's a wonderful example.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you to make a sort of a summative statement for today. If you had to summarize and if you had to give a message for both our practitioners, our teachers out in the field, and if you had to give a message for our parents, who is also part of this wonderful process called motivation, and if you had to sum that up in about a couple sentences, what would that be?
Well, I would say that for the parents that they would need to be involved in their learning, in their child's learning. They need to be involved in the daily activities of their child's education. We're we're such a fast-paced society, sometimes we forget. I forget myself to really take my child's homework out, or just their lessons, or their notes from the teacher, and really go over them. And not with a fine-tooth comb, but just, you got to show that interest, but a genuine interest. You can't just run through it and sign the paper and send it back. That's just something personally that I just realized that I catch myself doing. And so I have to, make sure that we, as parents, are really involved. It doesn't mean having to come up and volunteer all the time, although that's great. And that's necessary, and if it's a possibility, that's great. But it just means, I think more importantly, to be involved at home and let your child know that it is important. It's imperative that they do the best they can at school. That doesn't mean always mean A's and B's. Just the best they can. Give a good effort. And I think as an administrator, I hope the teachers that are in our building, or in any building for that matter, are willing to try things, and willing to try new things. Not necessarily new things coming down from the state or the feds, but something that might reach a child, and probably something that they have in their arsenal of teaching abilities, or whatever they have in their little book of tricks. Okay. But something that they can use to reach each child. And the big buzzword is differentiation.
Okay, thank you. And a quick word because of time. One sentence. What would that sentence be? I took your time.
I would say, especially to the people who are future teachers, just have fun. Have fun. Stay with the times. Know your kids, and make it interesting.
Thank you.
Children first.
Children first. And that's a wonderful way to end our broadcast for our TV show, Got a Minute with Dr. Z. But before I do that, I want to end with segment 4 of our video, and it's about 10 to 20 seconds. Let's take a look as to this young lady, what she has to say.
If the subject is very fun, it sort of makes you have to have an interest in that. And then it just helps you get more ready for the subject if you can understand it. Just the thought of just trying to do what I can do instead of being pushed for it. I'd rather do what I can do than to feel bad about if I don't get a good grade or something. Like, if there's going to be a test that morning, if I just look over the stuff real quick and go, okay, I can do this, that makes me feel more motivated to do it. Get excited to learn. Well, if you just say, well, like, if you go to the person, you can do this, it's okay if you don't get it right or something, that might help them feel more like they can do it. One that gives you a challenge, but doesn't push it too far. To have a challenge. Like one that will give you some hard work, but they keep it where it's fun too.
Wow. Exciting stuff.
Yes.
I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Bosch, Ms. Stevens, and Mr. White for joining us in this panel discussion. And we thank you, audience members, to watch and share the good message of motivation.